Dennis is calling from Canada and says the Bible is enough evidence for God. So, Dennis, you're on with Darante and Matt. Dennis, you're calling through the web client, probably on your phone. You're going to have to tap your phone to wake it up. There you go.
Hello.
Hey, Dennis, you're on.
I just want to say that the Bible, I think it's enough to prove God's existence. Since the accuracy of archaeological and I think historical evidences for just like the Pontius
archaeological Pilate, and what?
And historical evidence. Just like
where's the historical Pilate evidence? Where's the historical evidence for, I don't know, anything in the first few chapters of Genesis?
I think not all, but there are parts of the Bible that has historical evidences, like the Pontius Pilate. I think he existed.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold on, Dennis. Can I ask you this? Can I ask you? But before we move on, are you saying that the Bible has evidence for God, or the Bible has evidence for people who are listed in the Bible? Because evidence that Pontius Pilate existed wouldn't be evidence that God exists.
And there are a lot of historical evidences, not just Pontius Pilate, right?
Right, but does any of that historical evidence point to the existence of a God?
No, but I think it's going there. I think it's the historical accuracy.
If it doesn't point to a God, then why did you say the Bible's enough evidence for God if the Bible doesn't provide evidence that points to God?
Well, I think it cites real events, okay. And
you ever read Spider-Man comic books?
But the difference is it is made for.
Did you ever read Spider-Man comic books? Did you ever read Spider-Man comic books? Okay, where does Spider-Man live?
I know it's there are the places are
New York.
Real, but New York. I think the difference is
it's New York.
It's made for.
It's New York. Yes. The answer to my question is I don't know why you. Let me pause for just a second because I would really like to just stay in a good, calm mood all day. For everybody who's on hold, I've done this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing, and I'm asking questions specifically to further a conversation where we might get more clarity and where the people watching will get something out of this. So if I ask you a question, just answer the question I'm asking, because I guarantee you, after so many years of doing this, I'm like a dog with a bone. And if I ask a question and you don't answer it, we will sit here and spin our wheels on that same question for 5 or 10 minutes. So just answer the question that you're asked, and then we get to move on to something else. So when I say, where does Spider-Man live? The answer is New York. And then the next statement for me is, New York is a real place. Does the existence of New York in any way confirm the existence of Spider-Man? And the answer, of course, is no. So the existence of Pontius Pilate does not prove that the Bible's other claims about a God are real. So how can we get to that part? How do we get to, here's the evidence that God is real? Dennis?
Yes.
How do we get to God is real?
I just mentioned this Pontius Pilate, but there are a lot of things that are real in the Bible, and I just also want to cite that just in science, but the first law of thermodynamics, right, that energy cannot be created nor destroyed.
Did God create anything? Did God create energy?
We don't know that, but that's what I'm saying, that it cannot be created nor destroyed. I think.
Yeah, I don't know, Dennis. I don't know that you understand the first law of thermodynamics, nor do I know why the first law of thermodynamics is remotely relevant. You called in to say the Bible is enough evidence for God. And then when Darante asked you about it, you said it doesn't provide evidence for God. And then after I tried to redirect you, you come back with the first law of thermodynamics. What does that have to do with the Bible or God?
It's because I think it would be impossible for an energy to exist on its own, right?
Is God energy?
It's contingent. I don't.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Does God exist on his own?
Yep. Yeah. Probably. Of course.
How do you know?
But because it's a divine being, it's an omni
What's
being.
that mean? What's that mean, and how do you know that the divine being exists?
I think the problem here is you always ask for these evidences, and the fact is you cannot just give any evidence for everything, right? We cannot know
Yes.
everything.
I don't believe things without evidence. Why do you?
But because we have called we have a word which is faith, right?
Sure, faith is
I
the
think
excuse
that
people give for believing things when they don't have a good reason. I wait for a good reason to believe things.
I'm not sure about that because we have the Bible. I think that is the ultimate evidence for the existence.
Okay, so let's start there then, Dennis. Why do you believe the Bible is the ultimate evidence?
I think just
Who
like
wrote
any
it?
other.
Can we start there? Do you know who wrote it? You know how it came to be?
There are a lot of books in the Bible, right? So they're the one who wrote that.
Okay, who are these
66 in some
people?
versions.
Why do you trust these people who wrote it?
Because they are contemporary people at that time, and I believe they are guided by God with those as they write those passages.
Did they claim to be guided by God, Dennis?
No, but I think it's understandable in some way, right? If you
How
come to
so?
think of
How
it.
do you get to that
Why?
understanding? If they didn't make that claim, Dennis, how do you get to make a claim that they didn't make?
I'm not sure, but I think that's what it is for me. I think
So
they have
just
they
to be
didn't get.
clear,
Well, go ahead. Go ahead.
just
Jesse.
to be clear, you're not sure how they get to make that claim. You're not sure if God is energy, but you are sure that the Bible proves God. One of these things is not like the other, Dennis. There's a break here. And so you have a lot of areas that you're not sure about. So why not just be honest and just be like, well, I'm not sure if the Bible proves God or not. I just believe that there's a God. Why not take that stance?
Yes, but we cannot discount the archaeological discoveries, right? The Dead Sea Scrolls.
What
That was the old
archaeology
manuscript.
discoveries what archaeological discoveries have proved God? That was the question we started with, Dennis.
I think we're forgetting the fact that we have found the oldest manuscripts of the Hebrew,
Okay, how does that
and
prove
this
God,
was
Dennis? See, remember that was the first question I asked you. It was saying, so what you're saying is if I prove that there was somebody named Moses, then this means God must exist. Do you realize how that's not a logical conclusion? That there could be a manuscript exist. I can write a manuscript about God and you can find it. That still isn't evidence for the actual God's existence.
yeah, I understand, but I think these are the pieces to the puzzle, right? I think these are the tiny pieces of the puzzle that um, would lead to the proof that there is a divine being, and I think
So you're saying
also
we
the
haven't got to the proof yet.
no, I believe there is. I am convinced that there is,
So
but I'm
why
just saying
can't
it's
you
for the
just
people.
speak to the proof? Like Dennis, just give us the proof. Don't tell us what you keep thinking. Tell us why you're thinking. That's what we want to know. We want to think like you, bruh. We want to believe like you believe. So you tell us, you give us the evidence. Tell us, no, this is the evidence instead of saying, well, I just think this could be. Or just be honest and say, I don't have the evidence, which is what Matt was saying earlier when you mentioned faith. He says, yes, we're familiar that people use this word faith in absence of evidence. And if that's your stance, then fine, but you can't call in and say there's proof and then your
Yeah.
proof is faith.
Of course, I understand, but I think for me, everything in this universe, I think it's contingent. It should be
Okay.
it should be dependent
Dennis,
on something else.
This is really getting weird because, and I promise you, I'm not trying to be a dick, but this is absolutely going to sound dickish. You're not making much sense, and you're talking about things and stating things that are either factually wrong, like when you talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls. The Dead Sea Scrolls are fragments, and they are copies. They are not originals. And by the way, they do not include Christian writings. They're Jewish writings, the Old Testament stuff. There are fragments from Hebrew scriptures. There are fragments from the Second Temple time. But none of them, even if we had like original signed copies of, let's say, a fraction of the book of Isaiah, that would not demonstrate that a God exists. It would just demonstrate that we had the original signed autographed copy of part of Isaiah. It wouldn't tell us whether or not the content of Isaiah was true, right?
Yeah.
So why, if there's a God, if you're right and there is a God, why does God not equip you and every other believer with solid evidence-based arguments? And instead, you guys call in and you say, yeah, but what about the Dead Sea Scrolls, which don't prove that there's a God?
I could not answer that question, honestly.
I appreciate that.
But-
And that's cool. On that note, Dennis, I got some other callers waiting who probably think they may be able to answer that question. So I appreciate you calling in. I think you've got some more work to do before either myself or Darante are likely to be convinced.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Cheers,
Dennis.
Dead Sea Scrolls are a weird thing for me because people want to act as if, oh, here's the original that God preserved and hid in a cave, except that that's not at all what this is. And
Right.
by the way, if God wanted to preserve this, he wouldn't need to put fragments in a cave.
Yikes.
God could show up right here. God could materialize both in the room with Darante and in the room with me at the same time and hand us each originals right now. I mean, is that not within the realm of what God can do? The God that can create an entire universe can't do something like that. And yet that never happens, ever. Just like God has never been confirmed to heal an amputee in the entire history of the world. There's even a website. Why won't God heal amputees? You hear about all this stuff. Oh, God did this. God helped me find my car keys. God helped my kid go to college. God helped my grandma's glaucoma. God helped cure me of cancer. God delivered me from alcohol. But God can't heal an amputee.
Yes, sir.
Come on.
Hey, what's up? I'm glad you enjoyed that clip of people talking to each other. I'm Jimmy, and this is Eric. And well, we'd really love it if you would support us. Where can they support us, Eric? Where would they do that?
I don't know, Jimmy, because I don't have the notes on me right now.
This is
but
too
I think it's
long.
like
The outros have to be short. Patreon.com/call the line.